Chef Franck, what's your superpower and how does that serve your mission to help others?
Oh my goodness, superpower. I would say my mindset, I think, has been my superpower for the longest time. The willingness to do things different, the some level of resilience, some level of adaptability, uh, self-assessment, introspection. So I kind of approach all those things equally by just paying attention to my surrounding, my environment, and how I behave within the environment, and see how I can continue to navigate and help others to move forward with a significant mindset change.
Very nice. Flywheel leadership is about discovering and practicing the leadership systems that bring out the best in each of us and our teams. Can you think of a story about your experience that comes to mind that exemplifies exceptional or unique styles in leadership?
Oh, I have plenty story. I think that's what has made some of the most successful. I would say the most successful chapters of my career is I've always been very in tune with building a team. Much later in life, when I was a young cook and not necessarily having any team responsibility, or I was just kind of training myself to become whatever future leaders without necessarily thinking of one. But when I became a leader, I realized very quickly that labor shortage in hospitality is not a new problem. It will never be a non-problem. Therefore, you kind of have to find a way to manage differently, and not necessarily focusing just on performance-driven leadership, but also on culture-driven leadership. And very quickly, you just learn to approach things a little bit differently. And now I'm covering a lot of content and pieces about generational leadership, and how do you manage Gen Zs, how do you manage Gen X, how do you manage millennials, how do you manage and soon in a couple of years, how do you manage Gen Alpha. So all of those things as allowed me to understand and educating myself to know how to navigate this by being surrounded with a team that want to follow and finding what they're aspiring with and what they want to do in their life, and trying to be part of their chapter rather than them being part of my chapter.
Very good. I'd like to understand a little bit more about you and your story, Chef Franck. Can you share us a little bit about how you got to where you are and the core work that you do now? And of course, we'd love to hear about your book wherever you feel appropriate as well.
Yeah, of course. Without making it a 2-hour conversation or resume overlook, I've been in hospitality now for about 26 years. I've spent most of my life in there. I kind of skipped high school, went into the workplace back when I was 15, back in France, and became a chef. Then chef, I was also going back and forth between cuisine and then pastry. So I've done both, and then eventually I became a director of food and beverage. I've stayed within the world of Michelin star rated restaurants and luxury property. So I've kind of always stayed within the luxury and excellence type of market when it comes to hospitality. And travel the world. I've been living in places from French Polynesia to Australia to obviously back in France, and then that led me into United States about 13 years ago. Entered into Hawaii, then I moved after in California and San Francisco, then after in Arizona, and then now based out of Connecticut. For the past 6 years, I've built my company Incremental, and then moved on into 2023. I went full-time entrepreneurship and now run and operate a successful company that provide consulting within the world of hospitality. Yeah, I mean, I've always made a point everywhere I work to really care for the people that worked under me, to hire for attitude rather than hiring for skills, and surrounded myself with younger professional that was passionate about the industry and hospitality, and trying to develop them, grow them, coach them in order to become the best version of themselves. And in the meantime, it served me purpose to be surrounded with a team that was bringing a level of loyalty that I needed in a very demanding industry. And so, yeah, that has been kind of my career. I've successfully run some great properties across the country, and now I'm just trying to share my philosophy through my book. I've always had different way of thinking, and I've wrote a book in order for people, younger professional or student of hospitality of all ages, to have access to my philosophy and the way of thinking without having to work under my leadership. So now they have access to this wealth of knowledge, 25 years of experience, and now they can read and have access to through the book and figure it out how to navigate this industry for themselves without necessarily seeking out a coach or a mentor. Now they can realize how much they can do for themselves without necessarily receiving that guidance from someone else.
Let's stay on that point, Chef Franck.
Yeah.
Who is this book for, and what will they get from it?
Of course. So the book was written, I kind of break it down in two audience. The first forefront audience was student of hospitality, the one that are currently in school in Culinary Institute of America, that are learning the school, they're going into it. So they were really written with that in mind. That's the first audience. And the second was for that I kind of broken down in two different layers. One was the employees that suddenly is being given an opportunity to become a supervisor or becoming a leader on its own and managing a team, so they will know how to navigate that. And then the second part is, let's say you are an exec chef that's been exec chef now for 15 years and you're just kind of stagnating. You don't know what's the purpose. And so I've written that the background is really kind of deep rooted into reigniting a desire of growth, and how now with 20 years of experience can you find new purpose in order to help you navigate growth for yourself. I believe that anyone that's been in industry for a long time, their responsibility, almost their moral duty, it's to pass on their knowledge. And in a certain way. So that was really written down in mind. So student of hospitality, I believe the apprentice mindset never expires, regardless of the age, the title, the success, and the status. I think you should always be someone that wants to learn. You just need to figure out what's the purpose.
I love that apprentice mindset. I know in certain industries that's more of a formal way of working and progression, right, compared to in other industries. But
Absolutely.
I really like taking that approach, and regardless of the industry, and always be learning, but also, really valuing that mentorship from others, and then providing that for others when you're in that spot to do so as well.
Absolutely.
So staying on the topic of cuisine or food, like what's your favorite food or restaurant, however you'd like to respond to that question?
Oh, it's such a holistic question and loaded question. I think there's the cuisine that I like to cook, and there's the cuisine that I like to eat. I think I think I've tried to drive my career to not just being categorized into I'm a French chef, therefore I know how to do French food. If I'm following my own principles of growth and learning, I have been as ecstatic learning how to cook Indian food that I've been about Vietnamese food, that I've been about American food, and I've been about Italian food. So and that's the reason why probably I follow that path of becoming as much pastry that I was about cuisine and kitchen. So I've always liked to learn new skills. So the one that I like to cook, I think I don't necessarily have a kind of cuisine I like to cook. Let's put that I've never liked to cook the same thing twice over. I will always, I found myself when I was, when you go and apply for executive chef, it's one of those jobs, probably the only job in the industry of hospitality that you have to go do a tasting in order to get the job. Most other jobs, it's an interview process, however, how many times you interview, but as a chef, you kind of expected to do a tasting. And so I found myself oftentimes to go to tasting. A lot of chefs would choose the risk-free by doing dishes that they've done before and they master. And for me, it was like almost boring. I needed to not only get the job, but I needed to prove myself that I can do something else. So I was always adding a little bit more challenge, probably the arrogant or almost too much confidence in me that says, sure, let's try something new during a tasting to get a job. And so I've done always that, to trying to challenge myself during those times. And to answer your other question, the one that I like to eat, I'm still a very big fan of European food. I could eat Spanish food all day. I love Italian food, French food, obviously, but my mom's food is always going to be, there's some nostalgia attached to it, but I'm always looking forward to go home and eating the dishes that I grew up eating. My mom knows very much. If I'm there for 4 days, she knows exactly how she's going to break it down to make sure that I get a taste of everything I grew up with. I love comfort food, but funny enough, as a chef, in the past that I've decided to take, I'm also someone that is very uncomplicated when I look for food. Like I would like just, I would eat a pizza any day of the week. It's very unhealthy, but I would eat a pizza every day of the week. So I'm always in search of a good pizza. But other than that, yeah, European food is probably the same. I really enjoy eating European food. Spanish probably on top of my favorites.
Very nice. So talking about mindset and self-development, I know that's an important aspect of your consulting and your journey. How do you help somebody foster a love of learning in either in themselves or others? Like, is that just a natural thing, or can you shift your mindset in some way?
I think it comes from understanding the person, really listening to understand rather than coming across with an agenda. Everyone has a very I would say a very intimate approach to their own growth. It is your job as someone who wants to help to find that out. And so some of the younger professional that I had under me in some of my more recent project or past experiences, it's really kind of taking the time to sit down and figure out, whoa, what are you in for? What's driving you? What is it that you want to do? Where do you want to be in about 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years? What's the path you want to take? And trying to be part of their journey rather than them being part of yours. It's really trying to understand what's tickling them. It's like, wow, I have aspiration to be a director of food and beverage. And you say, why is that? It's like, where are you headed with that? If you want to be a director of food and beverage, you want director of food and beverage of a luxury property, of a $60 million operation, of a small little boutique with about 30 rooms. Like, what kind of leader do you want to be? And then trying to help them as much as possible. I don't necessarily have all the answers. I tend to think that most people have the answer within themselves. It is just for you to help them, finding them and uncovering them so you can help them, guide them towards their own path and their own destiny.
Couldn't agree more. It's such a powerful connection when someone else can help you. And as leaders, we help so many other people with their questions and struggles and journey, right? But oftentimes we also need that help from someone else that can bring it out of us.
Of course.
Franck, how do you engage and serve your clients? Like, what does that look like in your consulting practice?
So most of the client that we have from a consulting side of things, I will get the calls when there is project development. Let's say they're going through a renovation of a restaurant, or they have, let's say, they have a traditional restaurant and now they want to go into, I don't know, Southwestern European food, Italian and Spanish. And so helping them navigating the steps. There's a lot of people out there that will have the idea, this is what I want, but I don't know what steps to take in what order in order to get where we need to be. So I've kind of helping breaking down that process by by going into, okay, you need to find your leadership that's going to be creating that vision. Then we need to go into kind of OS&E, which will be your equipment that you need. What kind of plates, what kind of feel, what kind of napkins do you want, what kind of tablecloth, is there tablecloth? So all of those things, you kind of breaking it down within the time that it's being given to you. You kind of create a critical path. So you have those project renovation or reconcept development. You're also going to be having those calls when you have underperforming operation. You have everything you need. You have a GM, you have a chef, you have an entire team, but yet the restaurant is empty. Is it the wrong concept? Is it the wrong product? Is the chef providing the right food? Is it too expensive? Is it less? Do you have a food cost issue? Do you have a labor cost issue? Is there productivity challenges? So you're kind of breaking down what would be the opportunity, and you just kind of deep diving into an operation, break down all those processes and standard, and see how you can kind of revamping and retooling the team in order to approach things differently. Is there marketing initiative? Do you have a marketing power behind you, or are you just hoping for people to show up? Do you have the right concept within your market? Are you surrounded with restaurants that are busy, or is it just an area of town that is just completely dead? Like, just understanding all this and finding out if there's a need of repositioning on the market, and having those conversations. So those are some of the I would say major part of our consulting is really retooling. Someone wants a new beverage program. They want to be known to have a great wine selection and cocktail because they have an amazing bar, and you just kind of revamp all this, and you're adding mixology into this, and you just revamp a little bit of their wine cellar. If you have a French restaurant that serves mostly Italian and Spanish wine, that might not click. So how do you actually retool your wine cellar without killing your budget? So stuff like that. So it's really kind of deep diving into processes and helping them, guiding them into finding the right image and the right perception they want to portray.
Very good. Chef Franck, any leaders that stand out in your life that have made a significant impact on you and your journey?
There's a few. And I've learned a lot from my past mentors and past leaders that have taught me as much as I needed to learn, but I've also learned a lot from what not to do. I've learned a lot from bad leaders that was above me, and I just say, oh, wow, this is the result that it gives when you're acting that way. Therefore, I was always observant that way. But I would say I've had at some point a general manager when I was in Hawaii that I don't know, it just clicked. The way he was talking, I realized that you never really knew what background he had until we asked the question, because the conversation about sales marketing, he was comfortable with it. Conversation about F&B, he was comfortable with it. Conversation about engineering and capital expenses, he was comfortable with it. So he was never a master in any discipline, but he knew about everything enough to have those conversations with whoever their directors were. And I found out extremely useful for me to realize that you don't necessarily have to know everything about a topic, but doing enough to be part of the conversation, especially when you become a general manager, you kind of have to be the guy making the last decision. So educating yourself enough to be part of those conversations without coming across like you know it all, I think was helpful for me to know how to navigate, and why probably I like to learn a lot about everything, so I could know enough to be part of those conversations. So yeah, but yeah, some of those leaders showed me the way, and but a lot more about leaders that was creating a bad culture, or they were creating toxic, or they were being micromanaging. All of those things was allowing me to notice what not to do the day I'm becoming my own leader.
Franck, what is the most fulfilling aspect of your work?
It's almost as much of a strength as it is a weakness. I'm someone that doesn't know how to stand still. I'm always seeking out any part of what I do into growth or productivity or efficiency. I don't know how to slow down. I'm learning how to slow down. I think 2026 will be a year when I'm going to learn how to slow down. It makes me passing in front of things that were important and that I completely missed because I was too distracted or too focused into the wrong objective. So I'm trying to take that approach and find fulfillment from within. And at the same time, I think, just understanding that I don't necessarily need to grow or feel the growth to know that I'm growing. But I would say that the biggest part of what's I found fulfilling that I used to find fulfilling as I'm trying to take a different approach is I needed to feel accomplished at the end of the day, that I have moved the needle in some aspects, and not necessarily from anyone telling me, but from me feeling like I moved the needle. Unfortunately, sometimes it does affect the environment. Other people might be affected with my kind of narrowed approach to things, trying to be so focused and committed to an objective that might not be everyone's objective. So it's almost like there's an opportunity to be a little bit less selfish and a bit more collective thinking. And so I'm trying to work that to end 2026. So I'll tell you on the next conversation how it went.
I love it. Franck, you said something that really stood out to me. I don't necessarily need to feel growth to know I'm growing. Could you tell me a little bit more about that or where that comes from?
Yes, and it's a new concept that I'm trying to approach and introspect on, because of the way I've been conditioned. And when I say condition, is from my childhood all the way to becoming a chef. I've worked in an environment when you start with pressure. You know, you're working in Michelin-star rated restaurant or luxury properties, and you feel pressured. And at the beginning, you don't really know how to handle that pressure. You either kind of go through it or you break down. But eventually, as you kind of going through it repeatedly, you end up understanding pressure, and you end up finding yourself thriving under pressure. And now you get to a point where can you actually do without the pressure? Why do you feel the pressure? And I think right now I'm right in that category. Is the pressure that I'm putting in to do what I do? A lot of it is self-inflicted. Because I'm entrepreneur, I'm just have to put my own pressure into doing things. So now I'm just learning to find a way to realize that growth doesn't have to be a daily occurrence. Growth can be a yearly occurrence, and growth has multiple facets, which means that I don't necessarily need to grow professionally if I grow personally. I don't necessarily need to grow within the entrepreneurship world if I grow as a father or if I grow as a husband. So all of those things is it's for me to find a balance. I think I have been in balance for a long time. And I've been trying to figure it out what's my identity within all those particular discipline of my identity. So when I say that you don't necessarily need to grow to know that you're growing, I think I think I just need to find that balance. It's about finding your balance and the harmony within all those parts of you, I guess.
I think that's really powerful, Franck. I really like the idea of not being accepting of, not like ignoring what you need to work on or where you want to go or things like that, but also being somewhat content with where you are in this moment and knowing that you are committing yourself to taking steps forward. And every single day you may not see that growth, right? To where
it's the hardest part. I mean, for me at least, is the hardest part. There's many days when I've just I feel like I haven't done anything to really feel like I can check the box and say, wow, I was actually productive today. It's hard for me to not go to bed and thinking, well, what a waste of my day. For me, I'm not wired that way. So I'm trying to rewire that part to really realize that I've earned the right to just enjoy. I've earned the right to just do nothing, just for a day. It is just, again, it is something that I'm right in the middle of it. It is a part of growth that I need to adopt and accept. So I just I want to be able to find that formula, or at least that recipe, for me to know how to create that balance consciously and willingly, rather than just being force fed.
I relate to that so much, Franck. When it comes to um, having high expectations of myself, but also in that moment, in that day, shit happens, right? And not every day is like a level 10 day. Sometimes it's in your control, sometimes it's not. But putting that aside and accepting it for what it is once it's over, and then moving on to that next day or next hour or whatever, that next moment, is such a powerful ability. To your point earlier on, building in that resilience or building in just that muscle of, regardless of whether it goes well or not, being able to come back again and
Mhm.
do it all over again that next hour, moment, or day, right?
Agreed.
It's so important to leaders, and I think it's even more important the higher up you go in certain types of organizations or responsibilities. Not every hour is what you used to feel as productive. Like, that definition of productivity changes, and you kind of have to learn with that, you know, 10 years ago, productivity might have been, doing 10 of these things. Today, you may have one meaningful conversation, and that is really important. That's just an interesting evolution when you think about it.
It is indeed. I agree. I think it is. We living into a fast-paced society. Everything is extremely quick, extremely fast. There is almost the world is designed for you to appreciate it a bit less.
Mhm.
And just kind of going through the motion, or going after the shiny things or the novelty. And I think we now more than ever, me included, need to learn to slow down and appreciate what it is rather than what could be.
Yeah, what's next while appreciating this moment? It's tough
Mm.
balance, right? Yeah.
It's a balance that I have yet to find a recipe. So I'm working on it. At least I'm aware of it, so I can actively work on this.
I like it, and I like how you worked in recipe there. I like
Mhm.
that. That goes
Yeah.
well with your journey. Frank, what's one thing that you've changed your mind on over the span of your life or career?
That I changed my mind.
Change your mind on, yeah.
My goodness. There's plenty of things I've changed my mind on. Even though I'm someone that value commitment as one of my highest values in principle, but I did change my mind on a lot of things. When I started my career as a cook, I had aspiration to own my Michelin star rated restaurant. That was the path that I wanted. Every decision I was making was based on that path, and then over time, I realized that it is not necessarily something that I found was what I wanted to do next. I started traveling, moving around the world, and realized that there was so many other things around the world, that I just kind of pivoted from owning my own restaurant to just becoming a traveler. And as I found my travels, and I started always the same ambition of becoming an exec chef, and I'm always after something. I'm always chasing something, let's put it that way. But I think having kids, I've got a 5 and a 2 year old now, and having kids has wired me to understand things a little bit differently, seeing things differently, and at the same time, looking at what is my true legacy. I guess I used to think that my work would be my legacy, and then thanks to my wife, I got kind of rewired and redirected to really understand what really matters, and I had to learn to realize that I need to find that balance, and realizing that being a good father, being a good husband should be the focus, and without forgetting work, and so yeah, I've changed my mind. I've evolved so many times throughout my life into different ways. I think becoming a leader, changed my mind onto becoming an owner of a restaurant. Then after becoming married, changed my mind, becoming a father, changed my mind. So I've kind of constantly trying to evolve, trying to figure it out, what is the next evolution of my identity without doing completely rewriting it. So yeah, it's a constant evolution. But after all, I wrote a book about growth, so I kind of have to live it, I guess.
Very, very nice. Yes, for sure. What's one thing that we've missed that we should talk about? Any questions that I should have asked you?
I mean, I think as we're tackling 2026, especially in the world of hospitality, I think there's two topics that are coming back recently that I felt a lot of people were getting frustrated in 2025, and hopefully we can learn as we're moving in 26 and the years forward. I think one is the staffing and the labor shortage. Like I said earlier, it is something that doesn't go away, will never go away. I've been in hospitality for 25 years, 26 years, and that's always been a problem. I think we are kind of moving forward now into an industry that will be having more lean teams than a generous team. And I think the importance of training your team, it's going to be the most critical. And also having a culture-driven leadership. When you have a workplace culture that is healthy, then you don't have the call-outs, then you don't have the turnovers, then you don't have all this. Therefore, you can depend on a lean team that's been trained to provide you the best work you ever had. But for that, you need to adopt the fact that your team is the most important and the biggest asset of your restaurant or your operation. So that's one thing that I hope change in 2026. And the second part of it is, I think we are moving away slowly. I think it had started in some part of some markets, but we are moving slowly away from the TikTok gimmick era. I think we kind of, everyone is being attracted with the thing they see on Instagram or on TikTok, and then they say, let's go check it out. And then they enjoy that first interaction, their first meal that they're going to have. That they try to go a second time and realize that they don't recognize any server. The chef is gone. And then suddenly the food doesn't taste the same. And so I think we are going back into a cuisine or into a restaurant or into an hotel when the team has been there now for a minute and they are respecting the craft a little bit more. I think we're kind of shifting away and respecting more the tenure and then the consistency of the product and the craft rather than just the new shiny things that just made its way into TikTok.
That's refreshing to hear in some ways, for sure. Yeah. And my last question before we get into the close is really on that note. It's really like we hear so much about AI and social media like TikTok and the fast pace of change, or even the content itself. What does growth in 2026 really look like? When you consider all just that hustle and bustle of move, fast, now. Like, what does that look like?
I think there is, in my opinion, a misconception that AI will be taking everyone's job and will fast track a lot of things. I don't necessarily see it that way. I think AI will be utilized as a tool. If used properly, will be utilized as a tool to make us a little bit more productive, make us a little bit more efficient. But the reality, AI will not replace the human creativity. AI will not replace the craft or the love for the craft. I think you've got to learn to use AI to your advantage in order to educate yourself better, because now you have an information. If you go now on a chat GPT and you say, hey, what's happening in this town related to this hospitality, they will tell you exactly what you need to know. So the access to information and learning resources is right there on tip of your finger. I think that's what it needs to be used for. Now, with that being said, it's also going to be, we're going to have right now, when I'm a millennial, I'm 41 years old, I'm dealing with a lot of Gen Zs that are your workforce now. And the Gen Zs are an access to, they're not necessarily, they're going to be questioning a lot more. and they're not questioning because they want to defy you. They're questioning because they want to understand context. I come from a generation with Gen Z, Gen X, and baby boomer was telling me, Franck, this is the way to do. You shut the F up and you do it. And I say, okay, no problem, I'll do it. But now we're getting into a generation now that they're going to be more asking because they want to understand the context. Why am I investing myself into this if I don't understand it? Because that's the world they're coming from. And now when you look ahead and you're going with Gen Alpha, who's going to grow up with AI, and the way they're going to be taught the world, to understand the world, it will be to question everything out of curiosity more than defiance. Therefore, we should be ready as an industry to make sure that we're ready for Gen Alpha to come and ask why, a lot more than what we have been accustomed to now. And so I think it is our role in 2026 to really learn as a leader. Over the years, over the last probably 10, 15 years, 20 years, we've always, as leaders, thought that the generation after us needed to adapt first rather than us educating ourselves. And I think we really need to shift this. I think we need, as leaders, to learn to educate ourselves, to learn how do they respond to authority? How do they respond to feedback? How do they respond to guidance, coaching? And once we're learning how they respond to it, then we guide them into better workplace culture. So I think we just need, as leader, I believe it is our responsibility to educate ourselves first rather than assuming the next generation will adapt to our way of thinking.
Thanks for sharing that. That's some really good insights. Franck, how can listeners best find you or follow you in your mission?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. I've got a pretty strong presence on LinkedIn. Then Instagram, Facebook, obviously. After that, I've got two websites. I'm going to have my company website, which is incrementalllc.net, or they can find about me, my brand, my book under cheffranck.com. They will be able to find this, and they can get a copy of my book on every single book retailers from Barnes Nobles, Targets to Amazon. But they can also buy it through my website, and they can get a signed copy directly from me. So you can sign up to my newsletter. I started in August, and we are 650 subscribers strong since the month of August, and we continue today. It goes out bi-weekly every Wednesday, every other Wednesday at 11 a.m. And just talking about the industry and talking about hospitality and leadership and introspection and self-assessment.
Chef Franck, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you sharing.
Thanks very much, Graham. Thanks for having me.
Take care.